This session is all about UI UX design project walkthrough. So this session is very different in a mean that we have conducted 3 sessions before this. This is the 4th session on UI UX design. So this session is going to be quite interactive, and I will be taking all the questions regarding UI UX design and all those things. So this session, I'm not going to teach you anything different or anything new. If you have been a part of us from our first session, you might have seen that I've been teaching a lot of new concepts like design process or color, typography, and all those things. But in this session, I'm going to club all those concepts, and then I'm going to showcase you my own personal project. So this is going to be my project walkthrough. So this session is a part of design process and Figma series, where I'll be teaching you about design process in general and as a whole, and how to implement design process in your own personal projects, and then Figma. That is a quick introduction to Figma. So that being said, as usual, as a usual ritual, we'll just talk about recap. That is recapping our previous session that happened last Sunday. So last Sunday we had a session on playing with colors, UI UX design. So don't worry if you are new to this session. This session doesn't require, there is no prerequisite for this session. That means even if you haven't attended our previous sessions and you are just new to UI UX design, don't worry, it's going to be really fun and you need not know all the concepts. And by the way, all these sessions, whatever we have done, is being put up on our YouTube channel. So the link for that same will be provided in the chat section pretty soon. So that being said, let's start off with playing with color. That is our third session, that is our recent session, whatever happened on Sunday. So I'm going to give you a quick recap about playing with colors in UI UX design. So whatever concepts we have learned from that session. Okay. Now in that session, playing with colors UI UX design, the main hero of that session was about color. Color was our main hero, and we learned everything we had to know about color. Now, color as a topic or as a UI UX topic is really big, right? There are a lot of things involved in color. There is, let's say, if you're talking about film, there is color grading. If you're talking about UI UX design, there is color palettes and all those things. But in that session, I restricted myself to just UI UX design. I didn't talk about everything about color, but everything that you need to know as a UI UX designer, I talked everything about that session. Okay, so in that color, we had covered many topics. We had covered many topics regarding color. The first thing was there are like infinite amount of colors in space, right? As a UI UX designer, you have a lot of colors to work with, but we had bifurcated those colors into 3 sections as primary, secondary, and tertiary. So this concept you might have learned in your 6th standard, 7th standard, or 8th standard drawing class. This is pretty simple, right? Primary colors are those which cannot be derived from any color. It's like primary. You can't mix any colors to get this primary color. So primary color consisted of 3 colors, that is red, yellow, and blue. And then if you mix these primary colors, you get the secondary palette. Secondary colors have red, yellow, blue, and green, orange, and purple. So if you just mix all those colors, you will get secondary palette. And then if you mix secondary colors, you will get tertiary colors. And the tertiary color palette is the color palette that you're going to work with. So this will make up the whole color wheel. This we had seen in our previous session. And then this was our first concept, that is how to bifurcate the colors. And then we had also looked into how do we work with color spaces. Now, color spaces, what was our second topic? Color spaces is nothing but it is just the organization of colors, right? We had looked into how colors would be organized, like what sort of a space you're going to work with as a UI UX designer. So you need not know about definition of all these things. You just need to know about 2 things. That is, there are 2 color spaces that you can work with. One is RGB and CMYK. RGB stands for red, green, and blue, and CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So these 2 color spaces are probably the ones that you're going to work with. If you're working for, let's say, design, that is design in screens like UI UX design, you're going to work with only RGB, that is red, green, and blue. By the way, if you're working for, let's say, printing or for anything related to print, where sometimes like if you work in RGB color space and you do any posters and when you give it for print, the colors will look dull, right? That is due to the printer is working in CM/K color space. So if you're working anything related to print, let's say t-shirt print or mug printing or anything like poster printing, you need to work with CM/K. So all those things we are covered in the previous session. So these are our two color spaces that you can work with. One is RGB and CM/K. The third and the most important concept that is related to UI UX design only was color properties. We had seen that if you take any color, it has these three primary properties, three most important properties. Those three important properties were hue, saturation, and then brightness. So these three properties are the most fundamental properties of color. And as a UI UX designer, you need to understand what is hue, what is saturation, and then what is brightness. So hue is nothing but, it's just the name of the color, right? We have seen that hue is nothing but the name of the color. Let's say green is a hue, blue is a hue, purple, violet, red, orange, yellow. So all these things are just hue. Hue is just another name for color. Saturation is nothing but the intensity of the color. Now, if I take hue, let's say purple, 100% saturation means the purple is 100% intense, and 0% means there is no purple in it. Like the intensity has been reduced a lot. Like it is come to 0% yellow. So if we move from left to right, we can see that saturation is being decreased. Hue value is the same, that is the purple, but here it is 100% saturation, here it is 0% saturation. So that means if you move along the x-axis of any color type, you are going to see that it is starting from a very high saturated color to gray color. So if you do any 0% saturation, you're going to get grayscale. So that was the concept that we are seeing in saturation. So under brightness, we have seen that brightness is nothing but the amount of light that each pixel carries. So 100% brightness is nothing but there is full light in it, right? There is a brightest spot that you can get for the particular hue. If it is 0% brightness, you already know that 0% brightness means there is no light. So if there is no light, then there is dark. That means there is shadow. So that means it will get converted into black color. 100% brightness, and if you just reduce your brightness, you get 0% here. All these concepts we have covered in depth in our previous session. Don't worry, you can always check that session out on YouTube. If you just Google AthrV-Ed YouTube channel, you are going to get our YouTube where we have recorded all these sessions and then we have put it up on our YouTube. So you can always watch that sessions. Link for that same will be provided in the chat pretty soon. So this, whatever I talked about, like HSB model, that is hue, saturation, and brightness, comes under this model called as HSB model. As a UI UX designer, you might have come up with, let's say, various models like RGB model or hex code or something like that. But as a designer, as a user interface designer, you need to specifically work with only HSB model. And we had also seen of the reasons, like HSB model is more understandable. Like RGB and all are codes, like there are like machine understood codes. Like hex code is nothing but hash or something like that. But you can't really understand. It's not that intuitive, right? So since it is not that intuitive, it is not easier to take design decisions. So if you have to take your design decisions, you need to work with HSB model only. And HSB model, if you work with HSB model, creating color palettes is going to be really very simple. So that was our last topic in our previous session. That was all about color palettes. So color palettes is nothing but the range of colors in a user interface. Now, this is my Telegram. This is our Telegram community channel. So if you see here, the color palette of this Telegram community is dark blue, and then here we have blue, here we have white. So color palette is simply put up. It is just a range of colors in a user interface. That's it. And at the end, we had also looked into how to create a color palette. So we had looked into what are the steps that is involved to create a color palette. Believe me, it's not rocket science. It's really very simple to create a color palette. And then at the end, we had also created a color palette like this. So these are not like randomly generated color palettes. We had our specific reasons of choosing this color and then this colors. So all these things you can just find it out on the previous session. But however, creating color palettes, I'm going to go like talk about it once again in this session when I'm going to showcase my own personal project. So by that time, you will understand about color and everything. So this was our third session that we had on our on last Sunday. We had this session on colors. So that being said, all those recap sessions, let us put it aside. Now let us focus on today's session, that is design UI with design project walkthrough. So why this session? Why did I do this session? Now why did AthrV-Ed actually conduct such session like this? Now this session, since we had conducted 3 sessions, we have been seeing same questions like why design process? What do you mean by design process? Or how to apply design process? Or let's say a roadmap for UI UX design, like how to switch from, let's say, graphic design to UI UX design. Is it okay to switch from graphic design to UI UX design? What are the things you need to learn? And then we are going to, and then I also received some questions regarding, how to make your own portfolio project. You said portfolio project, like if you want to land a job as a UI UX designer, you need 2 to 3 portfolio projects, right? So how to make one, how to get problem statements. So all those questions, all those general questions, I'm going to tackle and I'm going to handle them today. Today, this session is going to be completely generalized. I'm not going to teach you anything different, but I'm going to teach you the essentials, and you're going to understand the length and breadth of UI UX design. You're going to get a whole new dimension of UI UX design. So prepare to be amazed. Okay, so now for folks who have been part of us from our first session, if you have been following us from our first session was basically around getting started with UI UX design. Second session was about analytical and thinking about UI UX design, and then third session was regarding colors. Now all these sessions seem to be like separate entities, right? So all these sessions seemed to be like separate entities. Like getting started, I just talked about design process. Colors was a separate thing, and then analytical and thinking of design was a separate thing. But in this session, I'm going to try to connect dots. That means I'm going to create the system. I'm going to showcase how you are going to use those concepts exactly in your project, in your design project. So this is a really very important session, and please focus till the end. Don't leave our session. Okay. So now that being said, so in this session, I'm going to be focusing mainly towards design process. Now, as I said, the first question was around design process. Now, what is design process? This exact term was I had briefed out in my first session on getting started with UI UX design. So in that session, I talked about briefly around what do you mean by design process and why design process. But some of you people still have doubts regarding design process, right? So although I had briefly explained in my first session, that is getting started with UI UX design, in this session I'm going to once again dive deep into this design process term, because it is really very fundamental and it is really very important as a UI UX designer to know about this. So this was a statement that I had done in my first session, that is design is all about solving problems. Now most of the beginners have this issue, like design, what do you mean by design? If someone asks design, what is the purpose of design? If somebody asks, they might answer that is design is something to make things look good, right? At the end of the day, you are just making things look good. But along with that, UI UX design is all about solving users' problems. You are going to take these design principles and then you are going to solve problems, or you are going to create solutions for it. And how to create a solution? Now let's take a maths problem. Okay, now let's take a mathematical problem. So if there is any equation or something like that, you need steps, right? You need step 1, step 2, step 3 to solve that equation, or to solve the terms or equations. In the same way, if there is any design problem statement, you need some kind of a step. So that step is called as design process. So that step-by-step process to solve that problem statement is called as a design process. So in design process, we have seen that there are 6 steps in design process. So design process consists of 6 steps, that is research, information architecture, wireframe, visual design, prototyping, and developer handoff. I had seen a couple of questions on the chat that when I was explaining in my third session and when I was like coloring my wireframe and then converting that wireframe into visual design, most of the people were asking, what do you mean by wireframe? Like, what is wireframe? What is visual design? So in this session, I'm going to tackle all those things. So this design process, as I told you, is going to give you that step-by-step process to come up with the solution for your problem statement, right? In that, we have 6 stages in this design process. One is research, information architecture, wireframe, visual design, prototyping, and developer handoff. So this design process states how to approach a problem and to arrive at the solution. It is like before solving any problem, you need to first understand your problem, right? You need to expose yourself to the problem space. And then after exposing yourself to that problem space, you need to arrive at that solution, right? So I had covered this briefly in my first section, but however, design process is nothing but you are going to expose, like how to expose yourself to the problem space and to how to arrive to a design solution. So in my first session, I had explained regarding design process using a hypothetical nutrition tracking app. If you remember, I had talked about like how to design this nutrition tracking app, like what is research in that nutrition tracking app, what is information architecture in that nutrition tracking app. So in this session, I'm not going to give you any hypothetical apps or situations. I'm going to give you my personal project. So I'm going to explain design process in terms of my own personal project. And a quick asterisk before we dive into walking through my personal project is that my personal project, this project, I can't share the Figma file as usual. Like usually, if you have been attending our previous sessions, you might have seen that at the end of every session, I used to share the link of my Figma files, right? But this session, I will not be able to share the Figma file because my project isn't completed yet. There are like small touch-ups here and there that I have to complete. So, so in this session, grab yourself pen or paper and then start writing, because I'm going to give you certain tips here and there when I walk you through my design project so that you can always note it down. So yeah, that one actually, let us just put it aside. So now for every design project, you have a problem statement. Let's say you're like working at a company or a startup. Everywhere they give you something called as a requirement brief. They give you a document stating what and all the things the stakeholder is expecting from that design solution. So since I'm explaining about my personal project, I'm going to give what was given to me as a designer, like what was the problem statement given to me. Now, the requirement brief is usually like 2 to 3 pages long. If you work under any company, it's like there are 2 to 3 pages long. And AthrV-Ed, the company that I'm working for right now, had also provided me the requirement brief. So since this session is like focused to beginners, I'm just going to condense all those information into just 2 slides. So my whole agenda of that problem, like what? So the problem statement was, I had to design an EdTech app where people could browse and purchase courses. That's it. I had to design an EdTech app where people could browse and purchase the courses. This is simple, right? What is it? It's like similar to Udemy or Skillshare, where like people could browse through courses and then people could select the course and then people could purchase the course. Very simple. It's not that simple as this slide suggests, because there are a lot of things that you need to think about while coming up a whole app. Like there are a lot of edge cases you need to consider. There are a lot of things that you need to consider. So in this session, I'm going to walk you through all those things. And then for each problem statement, they are also going to give you deliverables. That means what kind of outcomes are the stakeholders expecting out from you as a designer. At the end, what they want, what kind of features they want in your app. So the deliverables that were asked to me by our CEO was, I had to design onboarding. And the onboarding, in the sense, I had to design sign up, sign in, and then that motivation, like motivating the user to sign up and sign in, splash screen and all those things. So all those things can come up in this onboarding. I had to design my onboarding. I had to design my browse page. Now I said my project consisted of like user browsing through courses, right? Course number 1, course number 2, course number 3. So I had to set up a browsing page. Now I can't stuff in all the courses in that one page and then say my job is done, but that is not, because if you see there are like sections that each browsing page has. Let's say there is one trending section. You can have, like popular courses or popular teachers and all those things. So you need to think a lot before making any decision, right? There involves a lot of thinking. Now, browsing page doesn't simply mean that you just stuff up all the courses and then put it up on one single slide. It's not like that. You need to have certain sections, and if they click on any courses, what would happen? If they click on back button, what would happen? If they click on purchase, what would happen? So all those things, all your decisions and all you need to consider. That is why design process and then all these concepts what I'm teaching are really very important. They are like basics for your concepts, and then you can use those concepts to make your own app or you build your own app. So I had to first, my deliverables were I had to design my onboarding, I had to design my browse page, I had to design my product details. Now let's say if somebody clicks on my course, clicks on any course in that app, the details of that app should also be showcased, like what are the number of students, for example, or whether it's live or pre-recorded session, or what and all features are there, like who is the mentor, who is the teacher, and what are the frequent asked questions, what are the reviews. So all those things I had to think about. So this is the product details page. Now we have onboarding, that is sign up and sign in. We have browse page where we can browse through courses, and then we have product details where if somebody clicks on our course, they need to get the product details, and at the end, if they like our course, they can check out, like they can purchase our course. So I had to design these 4 flows, that is onboarding, browse page, product details, and checkout. So to walk you through my project, I will be switching to Figma. I'll be switching to Figma where I have all my steps and processes here and there. So I'll be showcasing how I did my research, how I conducted my information architecture and my wireframing and all those things. I'm going to share everything with you guys. And why design process? Why did I choose design process here? Now, design process, just remember this funnel diagram here. Basically, at the start, this is very vague idea, right? Onboarding, browsing page, you have some vague ideas here and there. It's like floating around. At start, you will have endless amount of possibilities. At each and every step of your design process, you are going to remove the uncertainties. You're going to filter out the content, and then at the end, you are going to get the product. That is your project. That is your completed project. This is why design process is really, really important. Try to remember this diagram because you will really understand when I walk you through the project. Like how at start it was very vague, and then how it was filtered, and then at the end you get that sweet looking project. So yeah, as I told you, I'll be moving to Figma. So this is Figma. Now I know a lot of you guys have attended our first session. Like this is your first session basically. So for folks who are like new to UI UX design and what is this software actually all about, I'm going to go to Figma. So if you type in Google, so if you just type in Figma, you're going to get this page. This is the Figma page. Figma is basically Figma is basically a UI design software tool, where in the end you will be designing screens. Like let's say you are now building your app, you're going to build screens, sections of the screen. So Figma is something very similar to Photoshop. Figma has all the features like prototyping and then collaboration, team collaboration, and all those things. So Figma is really very simple. If you have learned Photoshop or any similar design tools, Figma is really very easy, and you can always check out our first section where I've introduced people to Figma. If you if you are starting with Figma and if you want to know more about Figma is a UI design software and it's free of course, and it also contains a pro plan. But considering that you are a beginner and you are like just starting out, just consider the free plan. So that being said, if you just download the app, you're going to get Figma screen like this. So this is my page where I have created my project basically. So as I told you, my project was all about building or constructing or designing an edtech app where people could browse through courses, right? So now in my design process, I showcased that there are 7 steps involved or 6 steps involved. That is research, information architecture, wireframe, visual design, prototyping, and developer handoff. So all these sections, what I've done is I've just made separate pages. In my first page, you can see here that this is research, and then here I have information architecture, wireframe, visual design, and then here I have prototyping. So this is how you do your project. Now, if you're working on your personal project, keep all your sections in separate pages. One Figma file can allow unlimited amount of pages. Use that to your advantage. Okay. Now let's talk about research. Now remember the funnel diagram, right? It was like at start you have unlimited amount of possibilities. Now you don't know from where to start. You have just a vague idea regarding what to start, like how to start. Like in research stage, you need to consider apps or websites which are similar to your niche. My niche was all about designing a tech app, right? So I considered masterclass and then Skillshare, LinkedIn Learning, and then Unacademy. So here I've just collected screenshots of websites or apps that I find relevant to my niche. My niche was to just build out apps or like build out an edtech app where you could browse pages, right? So in my research, I knew my flows. That is, I had to design my onboarding, my browsing page, and as well as I had to design my product details page, right? So what did I do was, I just went to Play Store, downloaded relevant apps. So here I have just collected 4 apps, but there is no limit for how much you can collect. Like you can have some 19 to 20 apps also. It is just dependent upon the deadline. So that being said, so here I've just collected screenshots of the relevant apps from whom I can take inspirations from, or let's say the design inspirations. So here I have also segregated my flows accordingly. Like the onboarding, I just collected my onboarding screenshots, and then let's say I had to also design my browsing, right? So I had collected browsing screenshots for all these things. So if you want to take screenshots of something like this much lengthy screenshots, what you do is you can use an app. The app name is Longshot. So if you just go to Play Store, you can get this app called as Longshot. Wait a second, I'm just going to increase its size. So you can download this app Longshot, where you can just take long screenshots. And then what I've done is I've just collected my screenshots and then put them up in my Figma file. That's it. That is all about research. Research is nothing but taking inspirations from relevant apps or websites. Now, since I had to design an app, Android app, so what did I do was I just went to my Play Store, searched for relevant apps, and then took screenshots so that I could know what are the features I could add. So this was my onboarding. So this was from masterclass. Similarly, I've done for Skillshare, browsing page, product details. Similarly for my LinkedIn Learning. And then Unacademy, where I've took onboarding, browsing, and then pricing, social proof. So I've taken several different screenshots. So this is how you conduct your research. Now, this type of research is called as secondary research. Now, there are 2 types of research. One is secondary research and one more is primary research. Primary research is nothing but talking to users. Now, let's say you are like working in some big company and you have to design a big product or a big app where your decisions is going to affect million amount of people. That time you're going to talk to users or you're going to conduct tests with users. So all those are pretty advanced stuff. So if you're working for your portfolio project, you just need to do secondary research where you're just going to collect screenshots. That's it. You're going to collect screenshots and then you're going to research about your niche. Like what kind of features are there, like what kind of apps are there, and then you're going to collect screenshots and you're going to take inspirations. So what I do was I collected my screenshots and then my inspirations, and then I started to note down on my notebook. I started to note down what are the features that I could add in my app that I'm going to design at the end. So this way, I just collected my information. That is what research means. Research is nothing but collecting information. Research is nothing but collecting all sorts of information, whatever you could stuff in your app. That's it. Like how to showcase the courses, like what are the features, like should it be new classes, or should I name it like all categories or trending section, or should I name it as, let's say, topics or something like that. So all these are like collecting information, collecting relevant information, and then noting it down. That is your research process. So in my second step, what did I do was I collected all my information. I collected all my information in my research. So in my second thing, it was about information architecture. Now I have all my information. Now I need to just select how to showcase that information in my app, right? Design is nothing but showcasing your information. Information, there will be a lot of information, but designing is nothing but showcasing the right information at the right time. That is why information architecture is really very important stage. We are going to think about what kind of information you are going to include and how you are going to showcase it in your app. So information architecture is nothing but creating flowcharts like this. You can see I've just created my flowchart. Now I'm going to go through all my flowcharts. Now here I've just noted down all my points that I've collected from my research stage. Like let's say each class card should have thumbnail, title, language tag. So all these things are just taken down from my research. I observed them and then I noted down what are things that found relevant, and then I took images and then I've just imported it down like this. So this is my research. And now what do you mean by information architecture? Means you're just creating that flowchart. That's it. You are going to create a flow diagram of your information. Like what should come on top, what should come next, what should come next, what should come next. Now here, if you look at here, this is AthrV-Ed Masterclass app. So if somebody opens my app, then there would be onboarding screen. In my onboarding screen, there will be, let's say, splash screen and then feature section, where I'm going to showcase my first feature, second feature, third feature. And then if somebody clicks on get started button, then they will be leading to sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook, sign in with phone number. So I'm just creating a flow diagram because this is pretty much necessary, because at the end, if you are stuck anywhere, you can always come back to this information architecture and then you can see whatever features I've missed, whatever things I need to add. So this is how, so there is no hard and fast rule of creating this flow, diagrams or flow charts. Just create accordingly. Like here I've just created, like I wanted onboarding, so whatever things would come in onboarding. Here I have choose course, so whatever things would come on choose course, and then browse section. So what and all things that would come under browse section, or see get all access, popular courses, student mentors. So there is no hard and fast rule about creating such information architecture. It is left to you. It is just for your understanding, and make it as much detailed as possible, because you will never know what and all things you are going to miss at the end. So just make a detailed flowchart like this. Now I have created this flowchart using a software called as Whimsical. I've just created this flowchart called as Whimsical. So you can just note it down. Because Google or Whimsical. Whimsical is just a flowchart making software where you can quickly create these lines and these boxes. That's it. But if you are just sticking to Figma, you can do this in Figma. So let's say you're just taking one rectangle and then you're just drawing lines or arrows. So you can obviously make this in Figma. It's up to you. It's up to you about how to make this flowcharts. It's totally up to you. You can make it on Figma or any other third-party software. All those things doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is you're just creating your flowchart. That's it. So here, I've created two flowcharts. That is my first iteration, my second iteration. Like I made my flowchart, then I asked for feedback with my CEO, that is Gautam, and then he suggested a few things. So I changed a couple of things and then I've just added up to here. So this is how you take one design, you ask for feedback, and then you iterate. Design is all about not coming up with the right solution at the first time. It is about coming up with the right solution after many attempts. It's like iterating a lot. It is like filtering out the content. That is what I said. That is what the pyramid is all about. Okay, now I have my flowchart ready. I have all of my information. I know what kind of information I should include. Now the third step is about wireframe. Wireframe is nothing but creating a skeletal structure. Creating a skeletal structure itself is called as wireframe. Now in wireframe, there are three types. There is low fidelity wireframes, middle fidelity wireframes, and high fidelity wireframes. Now, what do you mean by low fidelity wireframes is that now you know what kind of information you need to include, you know how to include them. Now you should think about how they are going to come in your app, like how you are going to visualize it simply. Now, low fidelity is nothing but creating wireframes on paper. Now, don't take this as an let's say inspiration or something like that, because this is not correct low fidelity wireframe. This I've done it roughly. So if you have to create clear-cut wireframes, you need to just draw a big phone like this, and then you need to add. So that anyone who is looking at your Figma file could understand it. So low fidelity wireframes is just creating these skeletal structures on your paper. That is low fidelity. So here you're just going to iterate a lot. Like let's say I'm just creating this, and then I'm going to make a copy of it, and then I'm changing out things here and there. So this is how you're going to do iterations in your wireframe stage. So here also I've just divided into my flows, that is for onboarding, for browsing, for my product details. So under product details, what kind of features I should add. So I know what kind of features I should add because I have done my information architecture. I know what kind of things it should come in my browsing page, and then in my wireframe I'm just showcasing them in that particular stages. Now let's say here there is overview, class structure, review, discuss. So this is how I create my wireframe. This is how you are like, you have your own vague idea, and then you are like moving ahead of that funnel, and then you are just removing all the uncertainties. In this wireframe, you can clearly observe that you can have that 10 to 20% of your visualization of your design, right? So now this is all about low fidelity wireframes. Now middle fidelity is nothing but taking your paper wireframes and then creating that in Figma. This middle fidelity, I didn't really do middle fidelity because I did not have time. Like I had deadlines to meet. So I just jumped from middle fidelity to high fidelity. Now middle fidelity is nothing but I'm just creating those wireframes under Figma. So I'm just using basic rectangles to just showcase the positions of my text and then buttons. That's it. I'm not even thinking about what and all things I'm going to add. What is my text that I'm going to add, or what is the spacing between them. So if you're a beginner, you need to move from low fidelity to middle fidelity, and then high fidelity is nothing but you're just converting these paper wireframes into Figma wireframes. So here, let's say this is our sign up screen. So here I have my logo. Here I have sign in to get started, continue with Google, continue with Facebook, or continue with mobile number. Now you saw this in my information architecture. So I'm just converting them into wireframes. So higher fidelity is that I'm just going to add my text. I'm not going to think about colors yet. Colors and all I'm going to do it in my visual design stage. This is just skeleton. So here I'm just going to think about whatever icons that I could add, whatever logos, like where should the logo be placed, what should be my text and all those things. And then here I've just gone an extra step, and then I'm also think about my grid. So here grid is nothing but just a useful tool where you can place your elements. So I will talk more about grid in the in the coming session. But since this is a higher fidelity wireframe, I've just created my grid. I've just decided upon what text to add, what should be my buttons and all those things. So this is how you create your low fidelity paper wireframes into high fidelity visual design. So here also I've just iterated a lot. Like you can see that I have created this first version, and then I've copied this and I've changed my second version. So this is how you create one version, ask for feedback from, let's say, a designer or your stakeholder, and upon his suggestions, you are going to change it, and then you are going to iterate it. This is how you iterate. Iteration is very much important if you are a designer. You need to iterate a lot. This is how you get used to Figma tools as well as to your decision processes. So yeah, this was all about wireframes, converting all this information into a 20% visualization. Now coming to visual design. Visual design is nothing but, simply put up, here you are going to select your color palette. You are going to create your color palette, and then you are going to use your wireframes, and then you are going to throw in colors, and then you are going to think about typography and the text. So here, this is my color palette. So here, this blue is my brand color. Here I just made a darker shade, a lighter shade, and then grays, and then this accent color. So how to make this color palette? If you're new to this, watch our third session. So I'm just talking in detail about how to create color palettes like this. It's really very simple. It's not that difficult. Okay, now what I've done is I've just copied my wireframe, just copied everything like this. Control C, and then I've just Control V here, and then I've taken this I've taken this color palettes, and then I've dropped in colors. Now let's say this is my splash screen, and all these things, all these frames that you can see here are of low opacity. That means these are my iterations. I'm just reduce my opacity so that I will know which are my final ones. So all these colored ones are my final versions, and all these low opacity screens are my iterations. So if I just increase my opacity, let's say to 100%, now you can see that this is my first version. Then I asked for feedback, and then he told, this AthrV-Ed logo, let's make it white, and then the spacing is weird. So then I just created something else. So this is how you iterate, as I said. So this is a quick tip. If you want to make iterations, after you have done your iteration and after you have ended up with the final version, just don't delete your iterations because you will never know whatever you need to pick. Just select all those iteration frames and then reduce your opacity. You can reduce your opacity here from 100% to 10% or 20%. So here you can see that I've just picked up my colors. This darker color, I've just created my dark mode or something like that. So this is how you create your wireframes into finished visual designs. Now you can see that all my text here aren't simply text, they are actual text. Now, if you're a beginner, you might be tempted to write lorem ipsum. Lorem ipsum is just dummy text that you can find on internet. But a quick tip that if you are like working in visual design, always try to put in actual text, because let's say you have just designed for 2 to 3 lines of text. But at the end, when you receive the actual text, it might be like some 3 to 4 lines or like 6 to 7 lines. Then your whole spacing will get messed up. So don't work with lorem ipsum and those random generators. Try to use actual text so that if you are giving this feedback for, let's say, your stakeholder, he will better understand what your app is all about. Now, this is the visual design stage where you have just converted your wireframes into like into colorful designs. So by this now, you can just give it to your stakeholder, and then you can say that, hey, I have just finished my project. Now, most of the people might not understand what comes after this splash screen, like whether after splash screen, whether this browse page comes, or after this browse page, whether this sign up screen comes. Like they don't know the flow of it, right? So the last step is just to create a prototype. Visual design will give you that 80 to 90% feel of the app. Prototype is going to just give you the 100% feel of the app. Now here, prototypes, what I've done is, I've just copied my visual design screens and then I've made a clickable prototype. Now here you might not see any difference between the visual design stage and the prototyping stage. But if I change my tab from design to prototype, you can see that I've just connected everything. I know I didn't teach you prototype yet. I'm going to teach you all those things in the coming session. Stay tuned for that. Prototype is nothing but you're just creating clickable prototype so that the stakeholder or anyone could get the 100% feel of the app. That's it. So now when you have created a prototype, you can just click on this present button. So this is my complete prototype. This is what I've ended up with. Very vague idea about creating my app, something similar to Udemy. And then I've just used my design process to just filter out all the uncertainties and then to come up with this prototype. So this prototype is my last section. So you can see that my first screen is this splash screen. Now if I click on this, I get my sign up screen. If I click on my continue with mobile number, I get this enter your mobile number, and then if I continue, enter your OTP. So this is how you just get that flow. You get that feeling of a perfect app. So prototyping is your last stage. This is how you convert your random, vague thoughts into finished prototypes. So that's it for this section. I hope you have pretty much got use of design process, wide design process, and whatever things are there in your design process. So I think now you get the point about creating this prototype. This is how cool Figma is. You can create your whole your whole entire design process in just one software. That is Figma. Figma is so powerful and it's so easy to learn. So I will better teach you this prototype in my coming sessions also. Don't worry. So yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions, you can always ask it. If you have any questions, you can just drop it down in the chat box or in the chat section. So yeah, that was all about it.
Hello guys, thank you Sudhanma for that amazing session.
Yeah, thanks.
So hi guys, my name is Gautam and I'm founder and CEO of AthrV-Ed. So Sudhanma is our product designer. He has given some amazing session right now. So we were discussing, since it's a festive season, who will jump into actually attend this session. So we thought we'll keep this an impromptu session about where we explain and have an interactive kind of a scenario. So if you guys have, first of all, thank you all for joining in. And if you guys have any questions, you can just switch on your mic and ask your answers, questions. So we'll try to answer most of them. And
So
also you
yeah,
can chat going on.
yeah. So Kuldeep has this question like, can you re-explain middle fidelity? So yeah, once again, I'll just showcase my screen. So middle fidelity wireframe is nothing but you have just now you have made your wireframes on paper, right? Middle fidelity is nothing but you're just going to create these frames on your Figma file. That's it. Now let's say I'm just going to take this. Uh, I'm going to take this flash screen. Like this is the most easiest of all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click my frame, and then since I'm like designing for Android, I'll just click on this Android frame. So I just get this Android file. And now here there is one status bar, right? So I'm just going to place my positions. Like I'm going to take my rectangle tool and then create this status bar on top. And then I've also decided to like to put my logo here. So here I'm just going to take my rectangle and I'm going to draw the logo in terms of rectangle. That's it. You're just going to specifically mention those spaces or positions. Now this middle fidelity is not required. It's like it's optional. But if you're a beginner and you're just starting out with Figma, it's better to start with low fidelity and then middle fidelity and then do high fidelity. So yeah, I hope you got the answer for this question. So yeah, Vaishnavi, does UI UX designer need to be graphic designer for in terms of using illustrations and icons and some other things? No need. If you are like a UI designer, there is no need to be a graphic designer because a lot of icons that I've used are from free icon packs that you can get from Google. You can just search for free icons like in Google, and then you are going to get those packs. You can just download them. Or else you can also use Figma a pen tool, and it's really very simple. You need not know graphic design to become a UI designer. What is the best screen size we can choose to follow start design? Praveen Kumar, the best screen size. Now let's say if you are working for Android, screen size of Android is been like it's been given by default here. Like let's say in the phone you have Android, which is 360 cross 640. So if you are working for Android apps, you can just click on this Android. If you are working for iOS, pick the smallest screen size possible. That is your iPhone SE, because working in smaller sizes, you can always enlarge them. You can always enlarge your frames to bigger sizes, but you can't you can't make bigger screen sizes into smaller screens. You can't do that in Figma. So the best thing to do is you just pick the smallest screen size possible. So I hope you got the answer for the question. Yeah, guys, if you have any question, you can always open up your mic and start asking.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
As you said, we can design first on the iPhone SE, and then you can, if we are showing to the client, if he
Hmm.
has some other model like iPhone X or something, so then how we can explain him because we have designed in a smaller screen size, right?
Yeah, see, if you're there is no hard and fast rule that nobody is going to ask you like you need to only design for iPhone XS or something like that, because design is very flexible. Like if you're developing if you're developing for any uh, like if you're taking any designs and then you're developing it, you're your after your development, all the screen sizes will be responsive. Like it will set to the smallest screen size and also the largest screen size. So it doesn't matter if you start designing for iPhone SE, and then it will always fit for iPhone XS also. Like there is no difference between all the screen sizes, uh, because if you see Android phones, there are like so many form factors out there. So you can't design for every form factor, right? So the best way is to just pick up the smallest screen size possible and then design it for that. So rest of the things the developer will take care. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Cool. Is it really necessary to implement WCAG? Can you please spell out what WCAG is, Kuldeep? You, you can always open up your mic. There's no issue in that. Just keep it, very interactive. That's it. Web content accessibility guidelines. Okay. So, are you talking about web design? Probably yes. But if you're talking specifically to apps, if you are working for Android, there is Google Material Design. Material Design for Android. So, and then if you're working for, let's say, iOS, there is Human Interface Guidelines. Human Interface Guidelines by Apple for iOS. So I'm going to teach you about all these guidelines and all those things in the in the coming session. Stay tuned for that. So yeah, I specifically use Google Material Design Guidelines for for developing my screens. So if you are like developing website or web design, yes, probably you might have to use web content accessibility guidelines. But yeah, I think it is only related to grid sizes and all those things. So rest of the things, mobile and app, it's like it's all the same. So if you have any more questions, you can just ask it. You can always continue this conversation in our Telegram group. The link for the Telegram is being put up in the chat box. I hope all of you guys got a new perspective regarding UI web design, because all of you guys had many questions regarding what is design process, what is wireframe, what is visual design, like how to implement these things. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can always ask it.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
I was exploring on Dribble. What I see is that there are some really cool design, but they just posted on a you can say recorded version of that. Whatever design they're posting. So how they are doing it? They're using Photoshop plus Figma, or they're just using simply Figma, because with Figma I don't think so. I think they can do that all of thing. They must have used After Effects or something other software with Figma in collaboration.
Yeah, for interactions or prototyping, Figma. So if they have used Figma, they can basically screen share it, or let's say so they can screen record it. If they're done, let's say After Effects or something, and then you can always export it. So if you're talking about Dribble, don't take Dribble as your inspiration for like for your next UI designs and all those things, because Dribble is totally showcased, because they're not going to think about UX principles and all those things. Dribble only taking Dribble screenshots and then Dribble videos only for your UI designs, or like trendy illustrations or icons. Don't ever take for them your real apps, because real designers don't consider Dribble as an inspiration source. Don't take that. And for your question, they might have like screen recorded their Sigma prototype, or if they have used, let's say, Protopy or let's say After Effects, they could have exported it as a video format, let's say in .mp4. So that is my take on it. I hope you you got my answer, Ashish.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for joining us. Like we would be doing these sessions every time soon, like pretty time. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask it, or then we'll just wind it up.
Can you just give a brief, any brief project to us, so that even we can make some project like that?
Brief project.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Hi, Ashish. Ashish,
Whatever we have learned, I think at least we can implement. I think that will enhance our skill.
Yes, Ashish, I'll just share you a few links. Okay, so it's basically where you can find, you can make sample problem statements. You can generate problem statements through those apps. Just give me a while. I'll just forward it to the chat. So what you can do is you can go on those links and you can actually, you know, get those get a few problem statements from there. Okay. Okay. So these are a few sites wherein you can actually go and get problem statements for you to work on. You can choose different kind of the what kind of uh, difficulty you want to check in or all of those things. You can actually go and select in there and or whichever the topic you want to do, and so you can generate problem statements and you can work on the same.
Or else, bro, if you are like considering redesigning anything, you can always take government or bank apps, which doesn't give a fuck about design and all those design principles. So download those apps. Think regarding UX principles, like whether these features are really required, like what is frustrating part of those apps, and then you can always redesign it. So that could also be considered as your portfolio project, and that would be really great if you redesign something. So yeah, so you can take problem statements from the given links, or you can like do your own redesign projects also. So guys, if you have any questions,
So the best thing to do is what, like Sudhanva said, choose something that you have faced a difficulty in operating or something. So such apps might be of a good example for you because you personally have felt there's some hindrance in the usage of this app. So you can try solving it with your design. So yeah, Ashish, I hope that answers all of it.
yes, you can always jump on to our Telegram group where you can start asking questions, feedbacks for everything. So yeah, Telegram link is also being given here in the chat. So yeah, guys, if you have any more questions, you can ask, or then we'll just wind it up.
We'll be winding it up in another 5 minutes. So if anything is there, just we wanted it to be interactive, but I am seeing that not many people are responding.
Interacting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is one more question.
Yeah.
For the illustrations, which websites we can refer? I mean, if you want to use, or
Illustrations, there is many websites that provide free illustrations. Like let's say there is FreePic, there is Undraw, and I have used a couple of illustration sites like Flat Icons. So like try to use illustration from like where they will not put any license or any violations and all those things. Yeah. So these are my top picks.
Ashish, you have this websites where you can get your illustrations and all of that just to begin with. But it's better if you get your hands on the pen tool. So it's available. It's on Figma. It's on Illustration. It's on Photoshop. Everything. It's actually quite easy to use pen tool. So finding illustrations, it might not match the way you are thinking about it. So you need certain kind of illustration that you want on this one. But while finding that, you might waste a lot of time and ultimately not find whatever it's applicable for your app or whatever your design is there. So it's better initially, okay, to start with. If you want to use illustration, do use it. But it would be a good practice if you can learn pen tool, and because you will be having more flexibility to experiment with your designs.
Yeah,
And
even I have experienced that these sort of things because
yeah,
I was designing a screen and to find out some illustration from other websites. Like I tried Noun Project something, or maybe there are some of the website I tried, but it didn't work that way the way I was thinking because it was wasting my lot of time.
yeah, right. So Ashish, Ashish, what do you do exactly?
I'm currently I'm a medical student, but
Okay.
in this lockdown period, I thought maybe I should try out and learn some different skill, a different skill. So I came across about UI UX term. I didn't even know
Okay.
about it, but I have been practicing from last 4 5 months. I know I'm also using Illustrator, but
Hmm.
I'm not saying that I'm really good in Illustrator or something. But I made some of the illustration, but I'm still trying to get better. I think the pen tool has been the hardest part, but I'm now getting used to it. Pen tool, if even I can make some sort of illustration from through pen tool. So I think it's more like you need to learn some sort of skills of graphic designing plus UX. It will be a big advantage for you.
Right, right. You are absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's nice that you are doing something box from your general academy.
Yeah, I mean, at this point of time, we already have a lot of time to try out new something. So I
Yeah,
just thought, I just gave it a try. If, at
that's
this
good.
point, yeah, at this point of time, what I was trying to do is that just try to make a project for myself, and I can post it on maybe Instagram or maybe a Dribble. I think that would be a much better thing for to create a portfolio sort of thing.
Okay, great, great, Ashish. Thank you.
Oh, thanks a lot, sir.
Anybody else has any questions? Guys, if you want to know more about, right now you have just heard about UI UX and UI UX design and all of the related stuff. But UI UX is not the only thing that we do. So we are into a lot of other domains as well. So we are into all the domains which are relevant to the industry 4.0, that is the fourth industrial revolution. So that is we have lot of things like artificial intelligence, drones, IoT, 3D motion design, and lot of other things that are there going on. And we have sessions with respect to the normal things like whatever are running in the industry right now, that is soft related to software or the hardware. Most of the things is what we are covering right now. And you can always I didn't give a introduction session about what we are as a company and what AthrV-Ed is as a company, but you can always go back to the previous session on colors on UI UX in UI UX. So in that, I have particularly told about what we do basically and what AthrV-Ed is all about. Just to give you a basic idea about AthrV-Ed is basically an edtech company which provides a professional working environment to students, wherein they can work on projects and get trained and work on some R&D related stuff, and wherein they can add up their skills while they are in college. And we are more focused on the tier 2, tier 3 cities, wherein such not the metro cities, because already there's a lot of exposure the students have, but cities apart from the metros and the tier 1 cities, that there's a huge population of students, but there is a lot less exposure to what is happening in the industry, and the opportunities to even get upskilled within whatever the domain they are interested in is very less. So that's what we are trying to solve, the problem that you are trying to solve, so that we can make as many more number of students as we can get into this tech related or design related jobs, or even start up on their own. So to go get to know more about it, you can always get in touch with us on Instagram. If you want to get touch with me personally also, maybe I'll share you, if somebody can share my personal Instagram ID, you can share. Let me just share it.
So guys, there will be no certificates as at the previous session, because as this was a much general session where I didn't teach you anything different. So there will be no certificates being provided for this session. And Yeah, that was one announcement that I have to make.
So if you want to get in touch with me regarding anything related to the company and what we do, you can just DM me on Instagram on my personal page. Anything with respect to our activities that are there, you can go to our official Instagram page and you can message them over there. And also, I quite often put some tweets. So if you want to get in touch over there and get to learn something, you can always do follow. I think even our AthrV-Ed's official pages are also put up in the links above. So yeah, that's mostly about it. Thank you guys for joining in. Thank you for joining in during this festive time, and happy Diwali to one and all.
Happy Diwali, guys. Thanks for joining in. So yeah, that's it. That's it for this session.
So bye bye guys. See you all in the next session. See ya.